Well, howdy folks there. Come on in and sit a spell. Grab yourself a cup of coffee if you got it. Today I'm going to tell you about one of the bloodiest, most important days in the whole Wild Wild West story. The day the James Younger gang rode into a quaint little Minnesota town thinking it'd be just another easy bank job. Now most folks still picture Jesse James as some kind of Robin Hood, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. But pull up closer because I read a straight shooting book from the University of Oklahoma Press called The Last Hurrah of the James Younger Gang by Robert Burr Smith. And let me tell you, that book sets the record straight. It shows that these cowboys weren't noble outlaws. They were hard, dangerous men with plenty of blood on their hands from the Civil War days onward. And the real heroes on that September day in 1876, they weren't riding fancy horses and wearing dusters. They were ordinary shopkeepers, farmers, and bank clerks who said, "Not in our town." And let me tell you what really happened. It was a peaceful Tuesday afternoon, September 7th, 1876, in Northfield, Minnesota. Busy little mill town on the Cannon River. About 2,000 hard-working folks lived there. No one carried guns on the street, and no one expected trouble. At around 2 o'clock, 8 of the most notorious outlaws in America came riding in. Jesse and Frank James, and Cole, Jim, and Bob Younger, plus Cecil Miller and Charlie Pritz, and Bill Chadwell, sometimes called Styles. Now, they'd come all the way up from Missouri looking for a big score. The First National Bank held the savings of regular people, mill workers and farmers and shopkeepers and such. That money wasn't sitting in some rich man's vault. It belonged to town. The gang tried to be clever, and some of them created a diversion, riding up and down the street, whooping and firing shots in the air to scare everyone inside. Meanwhile, 3 of them, Frank, Bob, and Charlie, walked right into the bank like they owned the damn place. They jumped the counter with pistols drawn and started demanding the money. Inside, they faced 3 brave bankmen, acting cashier Joseph Lee Haywood, teller Alonzo Bunker, and assistant Frank Wilcox. The outlaws yelled, "Open the safe!" Haywood, a quiet family man, looked at them in the eye and said that safe was on a time lock and he couldn't open it. That was a stall. The safe door was actually closed but unlocked. He wasn't giving up the town's money without a fight. The robbers got rough. They pistol whipped Haywood. They threatened the others. Alonzo Bunker made a break for the back door and got shot in the shoulder, but he got away and raised the alarm. Outside, things went from bad to worse for the gang. A hardware merchant named J.S. Allen had just left the bank and saw what was happening. He didn't run and hide, no. He stood right there in the streets and hollered at the top of his lungs, "Get your guns, boys, they're robbing the bank." That's about everything changed. Ordinary citizens dropped what they were doing and grabbed whatever weapons they could find. Rifles from the hardware store, shotguns, even single-shot carbines. A young medical student named Henry Wheeler climbed up to the 3rd window of the Damper House Hotel across the street and started picking off outlaws with a rifle. Hardware man Enslin Manning fired from cover and dropped horses and outlaws alike. Bullets started flying up and down Division Street. The outlaws on guard outside, Younger and Miller and James and the others, they fired back with their revolvers. But revolvers against men with rifles who know how to shoot from cover, it wasn't a fair fight. In the chaos, there were 2 innocent townfolks killed. Joseph Haywood inside the bank, the gang shot him when he wouldn't cooperate, and a Swedish immigrant named Nicholas Gustavsson, who was just walking down the street, got caught in the crossfire. But the citizens gave as good as they got. They killed Miller and Bill Chadwell right there in the street. They wounded several others, including the Younger brothers. The gang finally broke and galloped out of town, leaving 2 of their own dead and the rest shot up and riding for their lives. What followed was a massive manhunt by posses of angry Minnesotans. 2 weeks later, the 3 Younger brothers and old Pitts, they were cornered just outside. Well, Charlie Pitts was killed. The Youngers were badly wounded, but captured and sent to prison for a long time. Only Frank and Jesse James managed to slip away and make it back to Missouri. But their gang was finished. The James Younger outfit never rode again. Now, here's where the book by Robert Burr Smith comes in and why I want to talk to you about it today. Smith was a fellow who knew military history and didn't pull punches. He points out the gang wasn't full of drunk fools like some stories claim. They were experienced fighters from the old bushwhacker days, but they made the mistake of thinking a peaceful northern town full of hard-working folks would just roll over. The book shows the real heroes were those everyday people protecting their own savings of their town. Like old Joseph Haywood dying rather than hand over the money, and J.S. Allen yelling the alarm, Henry Wheeler shooting from the hotel window, Manning holding his ground with a rifle. These weren't professional lawmen or famous gunfighters. They were just millers and merchants and students and farmers who stood up when bad men came to town. Now Smith strips away all the Robin Hood nonsense, and Jesse James and his crew weren't stealing from railroads and banks to help the poor southern farmer after the war. They were robbing regular people's money, and when they tried it in Northfield, the regular people fought back, and they won. It's not the most flowery book you'll ever read. It's straightforward and based on real accounts and eyewitness testimony. Just like the kind of history I like. No Hollywood shine. If you enjoy hearing the true grit of the Old West, instead of them dime store novel legends, this one's worth picking up, especially since they're bringing out a nice new paperback edition early in 2026. So what do you think, folks? Does it surprise you that a bunch of ordinary townspeople broke the back of one of the most famous outlaw gangs in American history? Or does it make sense that when people have something worth fighting for, they'll stand up? Now, if you want to pick up a copy of this book for yourself, head on over to the University of Oklahoma Press's website, and I'll put a link down below for you can get this book. Now, this ain't going to make me no money. I'm just sharing with you. The Last Hurrah of the James Younger Gang by Robert Barr Smith. Now, originally, this book came out in 2001 as a hardcover, but this year in 2026, they're releasing it as a soft paperback cover, 5x9 in size, and about 272 pages worth of good reading. So if you want to, head on over to the website and give them boys some money and check out this book by Robert Barr Smith, The Last Hurrah of the James Younger Gang. I've told you plenty of Old West tales over the years. This one always sticks to me because it reminds us the real story ain't always about the flashy gunmen. Sometimes it's about the quiet courage of everyday folks. If you've read Last Hurrah of the James Younger Gang, or if you've got another favorite book about the James Boys or any other True West story, drop it on down in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And maybe I'll dig into one of your suggestions for my next video. If you enjoyed sitting here with me today, well, give this video a big old thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that damn bell so you don't miss the next tale from the porch. Next time, we'll be talking about drugs in the Old West. Thanks for spending some time with an old man and his stories. Y'all take care now, and remember, the truth about the Old West is usually better than the legends.